Y'all, welcome to Nobody's Reading. Today we are going to go over the UCC code. This is the website that we're going to be using. This is uniformlaws.org. I also have the Cornell Law School site up as well. Peace. Hey, goddess, how you doing? I was about to say Sagittarius. But so according to Cornell Law School, these are the dates that the UCC code was copyrighted by the American Law Institute and the National Conference of Commissioners of Uniform State Laws, reproduced, published, and distributed with the permission of the Permanent Editorial Board for the Uniform Commercial Code for the limited purposes of studying. Our collection aims to show each section of the UCC in the version which is most widely adopted by states. That means we will not always display the most current revision of that if that revision has not achieved widespread adoption. So just like there's like a common UCC, you can also go to your state too. We also offer the UCC as enacted by a particular state and propose revisions to articles. We're going to go over the general one first, and then I'm in New Jersey, so I'll probably go over the New Jersey one later. But UCC Article 1, General Provisions, short title, scope of article, construction of the UCC Code to promote its purposes and policies, applicability of supplemental principles of law, construction against implied repeal, severability, and these are the codes over here, 1-105, use of singular and plural and gender, section of captions, relation to electronic signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. Part 2 is general definitions and principles of interpretation. General definitions, notice knowledge, least distinguished from security interest, value, reasonable time, seasonableness, and presumptions. Territorial applicability and general rules. Oh my bad. There you go. Course of performance, course of dealing and uses of trade, obligation and good faith, remedies to be liberally administered, waiver or renunciation of claim or right after breach, prima facie evidence by third-party documents, performance or acceptance under reservation of rights, option to accelerate at will, subordinated obligations. Then you got the general provisions, general definitions and principles of interpretation, territorial applicability, and general provisions. So that's the beginning of it all. So now we can go on to the first part of general provisions. Hold on a second. I want to look up the history of UC Codes.
UCC?
Well, if you say UCC code, you basically be saying code twice. So that's already here. Okay. So this is a uniformlaws.org. All right, and here is the summary. The Uniform Commercial Code, UCC, is a comprehensive set of laws governing all commercial transactions in the United States. It is not a federal law, but a uniformly adopted state law. Uniformity of law is essential in this area for the interstate transaction of business. Because the UCC has been universally adopted, businesses can enter into contracts with confidence that the terms will be enforced in the same way by the courts of every American jurisdiction. The resulting certainty of business relationships allow businesses to grow and the American economy to thrive. For this reason, the UCC has been called the backbone of American commerce. So that's why we're reading about the UCC codes, because this is basically commerce law, how commerce is operated generally from state to state. So, again, I would check out the UCC in your particular state. The UCC was first published in 1952, is one of a number of uniform acts that have been established as law with the goal of harmonizing the laws of sales and other commercial transactions across the United States through UCC adoption by all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the outlying territories. Okay. So the Uniform Law Commission was formed in 1892 in part to create uniform commercial laws. The Uniform Negotiable Instruments Law was approved in 1896 and soon enacted in every state. More commercial laws soon followed: the Uniform Sales Act and Uniform Warehouse Receipts Act in 1906. The Uniform Bills of Lading Act and Uniform Stock Transfer Act in 1909, and the Uniform Conditional Sales Act in 1918. The ULC officially took the task of drafting a comprehensive code to provide guidelines for all commercial transactions in 1940. In 1942, the ULC and the American Law Institute joined in a partnership that put all the component commercial laws together in a comprehensive uniform commercial code that was offered to the states for their consideration in 1951. Pennsylvania became the first state to adopt the UCC in 1953, and every other state followed suit over the next 20 years. So you could look up those different previous acts that came together to make the UCC if you want to compare and contrast. But overall, majority of states are on the UCC time. Cooperation with allies. The UCC is a joint project of the Uniform Law Commission and the American Law Institute. That's the ALI you see up there. Recognizing that drafting a combined commercial code was a massive undertaking, the ULC invited ALI to participate in the codification project, and the ALI board accepted the invitation in 1942. Over the next 10 years, the two organizations collaborated at drafting meetings funded in large part by generous grant by the Maurice and Laura Falk Foundation, with additional funding contributed to law firms and businesses that recognize the need for uniform commercial laws. The UCC today. The UCC is maintained under the guidance of a permanent editorial board for the Uniform Commercial Code, PEB, comprised of members appointed by the ULC and the ALI. The PEB, established in 1961, monitors developments in commercial law, recommends UCC amendments and revisions when necessary, and publishes official commentary to help courts interpret specific UCC provisions. And endowed, established with the original Falk Foundation grant funding and replenished with the UCC publishing royalties, is available to fund UCC drafting projects. Okay, so Article 1 is general provisions. Uniform Commercial Code Article 1 contains definitions and general provisions applicable as default rules to transactions covered under articles of the UCC. Article 1 was last revised in 2001 with a few minor amendments since then to harmonize with recent revisions. So let's look at the general provisions. That's all the places that's enacted. Excuse me. It's only one place where it's not enacted.
Where?
This area right here. Everywhere else is there. So 52 out of 53 enactments. Now let's go to this. Now we are in general provisions, and we're going to click on short titles. This act may be cited as the Uniform Commercial Code. This article may be cited as Uniform Commercial Code / General Provisions. 1-102 says this article applies to the transaction to the extent that it is governed by another article. This article applies to a transaction to the extent that it is governed by another article of the Uniform Commercial Code. It's interesting. What does that mean? Oh, that brought me back to Uniform Commercial Code. 1-103, construction of uniform commercial code to promote its purposes and policies, applicability of supplemental principles of law. The Uniform Commercial Code must be liberally construed and applied to promote its underlying purposes and policies, which are 1, to simplify, clarify, and modernize the law governing commercial transactions. 2, permit the continued expansion of commercial practices through custom, usage, and agreement of the parties. And 3, to make uniform the law amongst various jurisdictions. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I got to go into the dictionary for any of those words. Do you feel like I have to go in the dictionary for any of those words? We're just simply clarifying the laws and finding a uniformity. Unless displaced by particular provisions of the Uniform Commercial Code, the principles of law and equity, including the law merchant and the law relative to capacity to contract, principal and agent, estoppel, fraud, misrepresentation, duress, coercion, mistake, bankruptcy, and other validating or invalidating cause supplement its provisions. So unless, otherwise displaced, with special provisions. The Uniform Commercial Code being a general act intended as a unified coverage of its subject matter, no part of it shall be deemed to be impliedly repealed by subsequent legislation if such construction can reasonably be avoided. So we try not to create legislation that goes against the Uniform Commercial Code, because we want everything to be in agreement. We don't want nobody wants a headache. 1-105 is severability. If any provision or clause of the UCC or its application to any person or circumstance is held invalid, the invalidity does not affect other provisions or applications of the UCC, which can be given effect without the invalid provision or application. And to this end, the provisions of the UCC are severable. So we know person was like a whole thing. We got into the definition of person.
Means an individual, corporation, business, trust, estate,
partnership,
trust partnership, limited liability company, association, joint venture, government, governmental subdivision, agency or instrumentality, public corporation, or any other legal or commercial entity.
So that's absolutely, when you see the word person, it doesn't really have anything to do with a human being, a man or a woman.
It's just property.
It's just property. So anytime you see person, that's what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. So humanizing the word person does not do well for you when reading this. So if any person or circumstance is held invalid, the invalidity does not affect other provisions or applications of the UCC, all right? So just because that person is invalid does not mean that the UCC is now invalid. It can be given effect without the invalid provision or application, and to this end, the provisions of the UCC are severable. 1-106, the use of singular and plural in realms of gender in the UCC, unless the statutory context otherwise requires. Words in the singular number include the plural, and those in the plural include the singular. And 2 words of any gender also refer to any other gender. So we don't have to nitpick at man, woman, or anything like that. 1-107 is captions. Section captions are part of the UCC. 1-108, relation to electronic signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. This article modifies, limits, and supersedes the Federal Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act, which is 15 USC section 701. And let's go there. We don't have to go there. So this is the general rule of validity. Notwithstanding any statute, regulation, or other rule of law other than this subchapter and subchapter 2, with respect to any transaction in and affecting interstate or foreign commerce. Hello, chat. Signature, contract, or other record relating to such transaction may not be denied legal effect, validity, or enforceability solely because of its electronic form, and a contract relating to such transaction may not be denied legal effect, validity, or enforceability solely because of an electronic signature or electronic record was used in its formation. Preservation of rights and obligations. This subchapter does not limit, alter, or otherwise affect any requirement imposed by a statute, regulation, or rule of law relating to the rights and obligations of persons under such statute, regulation, or rule of law, other than a requirement that contracts or other records be written, signed, or in non-electronic form, or require any person to agree to use or accept electronic records or electronic signatures other than a government agency with respect to record other than contract party. If a statute, regulation, or other rule of law requires that information relating to a transaction or transactions in affecting interstate or foreign commerce be provided or made available to a consumer in writing, the use of electronic record to provide or make available, whichever is required, such information satisfies the requirement. So if I can't physically be there, I can electronically sign. A, the consumer has affirmatively consented to such use and has not withdrawn such consent. B, the consumer prior to consenting is provided with clear and conspicuous statement. That's why y'all need to read the terms and conditions before y'all electronically sign some shit. They got it so simplified now. You just check a box.
Never assume what words mean. Always ask questions.
Informing the consumer any right option of the consumer to have record provided or made available in paper or in non-electronic form. Right of consumer to withdraw the consent to have the record provided or made available in electronic form, and if any conditions, consequences, which may include termination of the parties' relationships or fees in such an event of a withdrawal. Informing the consumer of whether the consent applies only to the particular transaction which gave rise to the obligation to provide the record, or to identify categories of records that may be provided or may be available during the course of the parties' relationship. So sometimes when you sign something, it's for that particular transaction. But then just like how they say, like, can we send you further emails or da-da-da-da? That's what the part 2 is saying. Is there certain things that we can do in the future during our relationship? So you either got A, transaction, or B, a relationship. Describing the procedures to the consumer must also use to withdraw consent as provided in clause and update information needed to contact the consumer electronically. Informing the consumer how the consent and the consumer may, upon request, obtain a paper copy of an electronic record, whether any fee will be charged for such a copy. All right. So, and that goes more into verification of preservation of consumer protections. Nothing in the subchapter affects the content or timing of any disclosure or other record. Verification of acknowledgement. If a law that was enacted prior to this chapter expressly requires a record to be provided or made available, the record may be provided or made available electronically. Yeah. Oral communication or recording of oral communication shall not qualify as an electronic record for purposes of this subsection, unless provided. The legal effectiveness, validity, or enforceability of any contract executed by a consumer shall not be denied solely because of the failure to obtain electronic consent or confirmation of consent by that consumer in accordance with the paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Which is interesting because if you don't give certain consent on certain things, you cannot utilize their product or service, but that's a part of contracting with that particular company.
Depends if they're willing to give their services or not, depending on what you give.
So let's go back. So this article modifies, limits, and supersedes the federal electronic signature. So So basically this UCC, it supersedes what we just read. If you want to utilize that 15 USC section, whatever, except that nothing in this article modifies, limits, or supersedes section 701C of that act or authorizes electronic delivery of any of the notices described in 7003. So let's go to 7001B, right? It said
7B and C.
All right, so we're going to B. We read B, but just to remind y'all that this subchapter does not limit, alter, or otherwise affect any requirement imposed by a statute, regulation, or rule of law relating to the rights and obligations of persons under each statute, regulation, or rule of law, other than the requirement that contracts or other records be written, signed, or in non-electronic form, or require any person to agree or use except other than a governmental agency with respect to a record other than a contract with the party. So if you're dealing with a contract and it requires your signature, this is the preservation of rights and obligations within that signature. And then C, which we read also, which is the writing and the consumer affirmatively considered such use and has not withdrawn such content. Reading the terms and conditions. And then letting the consumer know how they can obtain a paper copy of what's signed, all that stuff. So let's go back. Take me back. So we can get into contract law with that later, get it more in detail, but that is like on a case-by-case type situation. Like if you sign a contract with somebody or whatever, like, you know, you're obliging yourself to those statutes. You know what I mean? Okay, so now on part 2, general definitions and principles of interpretation. Okay, we're going to go to 1-201, general definitions. Unless the context otherwise requires, words or phrases defined in the section or in the additional definitions contained in the article. In fact, hold on, pause. Let's go back to uniform laws. We did the general provisions. It took me to a weird space.
I honestly thought by pressing the states it would give you different ones from each one, different versions.
No, it was nothing clickable on there.
I don't know how this UI set up. Post. If not that, try summary.
Oh, okay. Article 1 of the UCC provides definitions and general provisions which, in the absence of conflicting provisions, apply as default rules covering transactions and matters otherwise covered under a different article of the UCC. As other parts of the UCC have been revised and amended to accommodate changing business practices and development in the law, these modifications need to be reflected in an updated Article 1. Thus, Article 1 contains many changes of a technical, non-substantive nature, such as reordering and renumbering sections and adding gender-neutral terminology. In addition, over the years it has been in place, certain provisions of Article 1 have been identified as confusing or imprecise. Several changes reflect an effort to add greater clarity in light of this experience. Finally, developments in the law have led to conclusion that certain changes of a substantive nature need to be made. The first substantive change is intended to clarify the scope of Article 1, Section 1, 1-102. Now expressly states that we are here. That the substantive rule of Article 1 may apply only to transactions within the scope of other articles of the UCC. Second, he states, second, I always find fucking what's the faces typos. Is that like a Virgo thing? Second, there's a T missing there. The statute of frauds requirement that sometimes has been interpreted to government transactions outside of the UCC has been deleted. Statute of fraud issues have been resolved article by article in the UCC, and the statute of fraud provision in Article 1 has become redundant and not applicable in the UCC. Third amended section is 1-103, clarifies the application of supplemental principles by law by establishing UCC rules as primary where there is conflict. Fourth, the definition of good faith found in 1-201 is revised to mean honesty. In fact, the observance of reasonable commercial standards of fair dealing. This change conforms to the definition of good faith that applies to all the recently revised UCC articles except for revised Article 5. Fifth, evidence of course of performance may be used to interpret a contract along with course of dealing with usage and trade. Perhaps the most important change to Article 1 finally has to do with the default choice of law provisions found in 1-301, which replaces previous 1-105. Under Article 1, before 2001 amendments, parties to the transaction may agree to be governed by the law of any jurisdiction that bears a reasonable relation to the transaction. Revised Article 1 provides a different basic role that applies except for consumer transactions in certain circumstances. With respect to all transactions, an agreement by the parties to use the law of any state, or in the case of international transaction, country, is effective regardless of whether the transaction bears a reasonable relation to that state. However, if one of the parties to the transaction is the consumer, such a choice of law provision in a contract may not deprive the consumer of legal protection afforded by the law of the state or country in which the consumer resides, or of the state or country where the consumer contracts and takes delivery of goods. Also, with respect to all transactions, an agreement to use the law of a designated state or country is ineffective to the extent that the application will violate a fundamental public policy of the state or country which has jurisdiction to adjudicate a dispute arising out of this transaction. The forum state's law will govern the transaction if the contract is silent on the issue of choice of law. All right. The 2001 revision of the UCC Article 1 rounds out a complete refurbishment of the UCC that began in 1985. New articles have been added. All the major articles have been either revised or amended. Article 6 on bulk transfers may be repealed by recommendation, shortening the UCC by one article. The Article 1 revision merely responds to all the work and effort on the UCC since 1985. So that's basically what we read was like the differences. Are you able to accept my request? I think it's just us in here. Oh. Basically showing all the revisions and stuff, everything it applies to, whatever. We didn't get to the meat and potatoes yet, basically. It's just the provision. Oh, let me read that part too. Uniform Commercial Code Article 2 governs the sale of goods. It was part of the original UCC approved in 1951. Article 2 represented a revision and modernization of the Uniform Sales Act, which was originally approved by the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws in 1906. The Uniform Law Commission and American Law Institute approved a revised Article 2 in 2003 that was not adopted in any state and was subsequently withdrawn by both organizations in 2001. Thus, the 1951 version of Article 2 is the most recent official version. All right, so you got to go to the 1951 version. UCC 2 governs the sale of goods. Oh, Excuse me. I don't know what's happening here. I don't fully understand this website. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's a little confusing. So we're gonna go back to Cornell and go to 1-201. Unless the context otherwise requires words or phrases defined in this section or in the additional definitions contained in other articles of the UCC that apply to particular articles or parts thereof have the meaning stated. Subject to definitions contained in other articles of UCC that apply to particular articles. So you got the word action, and the sense of judicial proceeding includes recoupment, counterclaim, set off suit, set in equity, and any other proceeding in which rights are determined. All right. Do we understand that definition?
Yes.
Aggrieved party means a party entitled to pursue a remedy. So that's it's usually like a plaintiff type situation. Agreements, as distinguished from contract, means the bargain of the parties, in fact, as found in their language or inferred from other circumstances, including course of performance, course of dealing, or uses of trade as provided in section 1-303. Bank means a person engaged in the business of banking and includes a savings bank, savings and loan association, credit union, and trust company. And we know what a person is. It's not a people person. Okay.
An entity.
Yep.
Or property.
Exactly. Bearer means a person in possession of a negotiable instrument, document of title, or certified security that is payable to the bearer or endorsed. What's the document of title? This is when we start getting into the couponing of things.
I think it's up a bit.
Oh.
Includes bill of lading, dock warrant, dock receipt, warehouse receipt, or order of the delivery of goods, and also any other document which in regular course of business or financing is treated as adequately evidencing that the person in possession of it is entitled to receive, hold, and dispose of the document and the goods it covers. To be a document of title, a document must purport to be issued by or addressed to a bailey, and purport to cover goods in the bailey's possession, which are either identified or are fungible portions of an identified mass.
So to be a document title, a document must purport to be issued by or addressed to a bailey. What is a bailey? Let's find out.
A person or party to whom goods, whom goods are delivered for a purpose, such as custody or repair without transfer of ownership.
A person or party, we know what those are.
An entity or company.
Yes, a delivery of business. Who is considered a bailey? A bailey is a person who receives property from the owner, known as a bailer, and holds the property for the owner for a particular purpose, such as custody or repair. The person delivering the goods is called a bailer. The person to whom they are being delivered to is called the bailee. Okay?
Would storage holders count for when you're moving?
Yeah, because they have custody. They have custody of your belongings for a particular period of time.
Doesn't mean that they traded ownership, though.
So we are here. Fault means a default, breach, or wrongful act or omission. Fungible goods means goods by which any unit by nature or usage of trade is the equivalent of any other like unit. B, goods that by agreement are treated as equivalent. Genuine means free of forgery or counterfeiting. Good faith, except as otherwise provided in Article 5, means honesty. In fact, the observance of reasonable commercial standards of fair dealing, which is why when you sign your name, you put in good faith. Because we are being honest. We're being as honest as we honestly can be. Holder. Can you read it? Holder for me.
Means A, the person in possession of a negotiable instrument that is payable either to bearer or to a identified person that is the person in possession. Or B, the person in possession of a document of title if the goods are deliverable either to a bearer or to the order of the person in possession.
And we know what a bearer and a bearer. We know what a bearer is. Because we did bearer up here, right? Bearer means a person engaged in the business of banking and includes a savings bank, savings and loan association, credit union, and trust company. Oh, that's a bank. My bad. Bearer means a person in possession of a negotiable instrument, document of title, or a certified security that is payable to the bearer or endorsed in blank. So you have the negotiable instrument, you are the bearer. Excuse me. And if you are the holder, that means you are in possession of the negotiable instrument that to pay to the bearer. Or you have the document of title if the goods are deliverable either to bearer or to the order of the person in possession. So you're the holder, the holding company. Can you read insolvency proceeding for me, please?
Insolvency proceeding includes an assignment for the benefit of creditors or other proceeding intended to liquidate, or rehabilitate the estate of the person involved.
What does insolvency mean? Insolvency is a state where a person or business is unable to pay their debts when they are due. It can occur when liabilities exceed the assets and can cause a number of factors, but is often a result of poor financial planning. So when an individual or a company can no longer meet their financial obligations, that is called insolvency. So this is a what did I say? This is a proceeding of paying off a debt. Includes an assignment for the benefit of creditors, which is credit companies, another proceeding intended to liquidate or rehabilitate the estate of the person involved. Okay. Insolvent means having generally ceased to pay debts in the ordinary course of business, other than a result of a bona fide dispute. Bona fide has a meaning. Let's find out. Bona fide means genuine or real. Only bona fide members of the company are allowed to use the logo. Only real, sincerely, without intention to deceive. So insolvent means the debts disappear. Other than having generally ceased to pay debts in the ordinary course of business, other than as a result of bona fide dispute. So what other result would there be? Being unable to pay debts as they become due, or being insolvent within the meaning of federal bankruptcy law. Money means medium of exchange currently authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. By a domestic or foreign government. That's a big one, especially for my micronations out there. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or by agreement between two or more countries. So all my micronations out there, you guys can agree on creating your own currency. You could do that. Let's look at countries. What is a country? Country is a distinct part of the world, such as a state, nation, or other political entity. Referring to a specific polity, the word a nation with its own government occupying a particular territory. That's all a country is. It's a nation. You can have a micronation with its own government. If you have your own government, you're in there, occupying a particular territory. What territory are you in? Districts and small settlements outside large towns, cities, or capitals, or the capital. So having a settlement outside of a large town or whatever, that's also how you can create your own country. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. I'm trying to break it down as much as I can so we can overstand. Organization means a person other than an individual. So anything but an individual. Party, as distinguished from third party, means a person that has engaged in a transaction or made an agreement subject to the UCC. Person. We talked about person, right? Everything but a human. Means individual if we're talking about singular. But if we're talking about, the plural thingies, corporation, business trust, estate trust, partnership, LLC, association, joint venture, government, governmental subdivision, agency, instrumentality, public corporation, or any other legal or commercial entity. Can you read present value for me?
Present value means the amount as of a date certain of one or more sums. Payable. I don't know why I said that. Payable in the future. Discount.
Wait. Let's read that slow because we want to understand it. Present value means the amount as of a date certain of one or more sums payable in the future. So today's date, these are what we pay in the future. Okay, keep going. Discounted
to the date certain by use of either an interest rate specified by the parties. If that rate is not manifestly unreasonable at the time the transaction is entered into, or if an interest rate is not so specified, a commercially reasonable rate that takes into account the facts and circumstances at the time the transaction is entered into.
So maybe if I pay twice, maybe the third payment, it might be a different price. Like forecasting. It means the amount as of the date, today's date, certain of one or more sums payable in the future. Like a prorated. That's what it sounds like to me, like prorated. Discounted to the date, certain by use of either an interest rate specified by the parties. Purchase. Purchase means taking by sale, lease, discount, negotiation, mortgage, pledge, lien, security interest, issue or reissue, gift, or any other voluntary transaction creating an interest in property. What does it mean to have an interest in property? An interest in property is a stake or claim in a property that gives someone rights, benefits, and responsibilities associated with ownership. There are several types of interest in property. One of them is legal interest, and that's the right to possess or use property which belongs to the legal owner or the person registered on the title deeds at the land registry. This gives the owner control over the property, including the right to sell or transfer it. Then you have beneficial interest. That's an interest in the economic benefit of a property, which belongs to the beneficial owner. This gives the owner the right to the financial value of the land, regardless of the title entries at the land registry. So whether I own it or not, I'm still making bank. Ownership interest. The interest someone has if they own 1% or 100% of a property. This gives them full rights and control over the property, including the right to use, lease, sell, or transfer it. Then you have a leasehold interest, which is a contract in which a lessee leases a parcel of land from a lessor for a set period of time. This gives the lessee the exclusive right to possess and use the land for the specific period. A lease does not transfer the title to the real estate, but instead spells out the rights and duties of each party. That's kind of like what the average person does as a tenant with a landlord. Joint tenancy, when two or more people hold the title to a property. Each individual has an equal ownership interest. This form of ownership is common among married couples and relatives, which is why when you get divorced or you estranged, you got to split stuff. Undivided interest is when two or more people have an interest in a property held under the same title. They have equal rights to the entire property. This interest encompasses the whole property and is not separated by parts or shares. What does ownership interest mean? In real estate, ownership interest in a property refers to the rights that one or multiple owners hold on the investment. In the case of multiple owners, the ownership interest is usually split based on the amount invested in the property. All right, so that's that. Purchaser means a person that takes by purchase. And we know what purchase means because they took it by sale, lease, discount, negotiation, mortgage, pledge, lien, security interest, issue or reissue, gift, or any other voluntary transaction. Okay? And if you do that, you are the purchaser. Record means information that is inscribed on a tangible medium or that is stored in electronic or other medium and is retrievable in a perceivable form. Remedy, that means any remedial right to which an aggrieved party is entitled with or without resort to a tribunal. Tribunal means justice court. I don't know why they would put remedial in the realms of remedy because I was always taught you can't really use the word in the definition. So we're going to look up remedial right. The meaning of remedial right is a right as of self-defense arising on a violation of and for the protection of the substantive right. It is a right of self-defense it's covered in the First Amendment of the right to remedy. This remedial theory best accounts for the history text. I want to see what the legal definition is because it was giving me regular. Remedial right is a legal term that refers to a right that arises when a substantive right is violated and it protects that right. For example, self-defense is a remedial right. So it's like the right to defend yourself. It modifies existing laws. A remedial law is a type of law that modifies existing laws to provide a new or different remedy when the existing one is insufficient. So like you got like thou shalt not kill, but what if this nigga's killing me? Remedial laws can give people a way to seek compensation and justice for harm done to them. For example, a remedial law might allow someone to sue for damages if they were injured by someone else's negligence, or it could change the statute of limitations for a specific type of case to give the plaintiff more time to file a lawsuit. Okay. I see. So remedy means any remedial right to which aggrieved party is entitled with or without. And we talked about aggrieved party already. Aggrieved party means a party entitled to pursue a remedy. Can you read representative?
Representative means a person empowered to act for another, including an agent, an officer of a corporation or association, and a trustee, executor, or administrator of an estate.
Can you read right for me?
Right includes remedy.
What about security interest?
Security interest means an interest in personal property or fixtures which secures payment or performance of an obligation. Security interest includes any interest of a consignor,
Cosigner.
sorry, I don't know why I spelled it out, and a buyer of accounts. Shadow paper,
Chattel.
a payment intangible, or a promissory note.
Promissory note.
Promissory note.
Okay, so let's go back. Security interest means an interest in personal property or fixtures which secures a payment or performance of an obligation. So we got security interest. That includes any interest of a cosigner and a buyer of accounts. Chattel paper.
What is that?
What? Accounts?
Chattel paper.
Chattel paper? I don't know. Let's look it up. Chattel paper is a document that's used in secure transactions to sell property on credit while the seller retains some interest in the property. It's a collection of writings that confirm the rights and obligations of both the buyer and the seller and can include a conditional sales contract, chattel mortgage security agreement, or chattel lease. Chattel paper must show two things: a monetary obligation from one party to another and a security interest or other interest retained in the property by the other party.
The part of the party.
So if I'm interested in a property, and it sounds like something like getting a loan or something. Like, I want this house, but I need the loan. Chattel property is a document that's used in secure transactions. So it's a transaction happening. You're gonna sell me the property on credit. And you retain some of the interest on the property. So you still make money on the property, but I get to stay on the property or whatever it is in agreement.
Or I get to use it.
Right. And so this is a collection of writings that confirm your rights on the property that still remain, and now my rights and obligations on the property now as well. Chattel paper doesn't include charters or other contracts that involve the use of hire of a vessel. It also does not include records that show the right to payment from using a credit or charge card. It can be tangible or electronic. Tangible is evidenced by record or records that are inscribed on a physical medium like paper. Electronic chattel paper is created, recorded, and transmitted or stored in a digital or other intangible form using electronic, magnetic, or optical means. Pulling it up on my screen. So it's a kind of a transaction. I'm using the things, but you still have some type of something on it. All right. I also want to know, security interest is an interest in personal property or fixtures which secures payment of performance of an obligation. Security interest includes any interest of a cosigner and a buyer of account, chattel paper, a payment intangible, or a promissory note in a transaction that's subject to Article 9. Security interest does not include the special property or interest of a buyer of goods on identification of those goods to a contract for sale. The right of a seller or lesser of goods under Article 2 or 2A to retain or acquire possession of the goods is not a security interest, but a seller or lesser may also acquire a security interest by complying with Article 9. The retention or reservation of title by a seller of goods, notwithstanding shipment or delivery to the buyer under Section 21401, is limited in effect to a reservation of security interest. I need a better definition of security interest. This shit is it's using the word over and over again. Why do we keep using the word interest? Security interest is a legal right that gives the creditor recourse to a debtor's property, bless you, if the debtor does not fulfill their obligations. Okay. This can include failing to make payments or breaking an agreement. For example, if the borrower does not repay a loan, the lender can take the collateral that the borrower owns, such as a home or a car. The lender can then sell the collateral to satisfy the loan. Security interest can be created by contract or by law. Mortgages are a type of security interest created by contract, while garnishments are created by law. Okay. That is a whole lot better than what the fuck y'all was talking about. Send. Send. Can you read send for me?
Okay. Send in correction.
Connection.
I don't know why I saw it. That was
because you're reading too fast. Slow down.
I can't see it from this angle. Send in connection with a writing, record, or notice means A, to deposit in the mail or deliver for transmission by any other usual means of communication with postage or cost of transmission, provided for and properly addressed, and, in the case of an instrument, to an address specified thereon or otherwise agreed, or if there be none in to address any reasonable under the circumstance, or B, in any other way to cause to be received any notice record within the time it would be arrived if properly sent. That's a roundabout way.
That's pretty self-explanatory. Deliver shit. All right, so we got signed, which includes any symbol executed or adopted with present intention to adopt or accept a writing. That includes writing an X on something. You signed it. State means a state of the United States, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the United States Virgin Islands, or any territory or insular possession subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
That's something that probably changes regularly when they add another state to the United.
Not so much that one.
Really?
Yeah, because it just means state of the United States. It doesn't have a number up there. Surety includes a guarantor or other secondary obliger. Let's find out. I don't like the definitions they give you. The word surety has multiple meanings, including a financial agreement, a type of security, and a term that can also mean sure knowledge or certainty. In terms of financial agreement, a surety is an individual or entity that assumes responsibility for another party's debt or financial obligations if that party defaults. So, like if you get a cosigner, you're kind of like a surety. Because if the person that's signing does not pay, then you're going to be with the debt. A surety is a promise or agreement made by one party that debts and final obligations will be paid. In effect, a surety acts as a guarantee that a person or organization assumes responsibility for fulfilling obligations in the event that the debtor defaults and is unable to make payments. So you're either the person signing or you're the co-signer. That's the guarantor or the secondary obliger. So you're the signer or the co-signer. Yeah. Term means a portion of an agreement that relates to a particular matter. Unauthorized signature means a signature made without actual, implied, or apparent authority. The term includes a forgery. Warehouse receipt means a receipt issued by a person engaged in the business of storing goods for hire. Writing includes printing, typewriting, or any other intentional reduction to tangible form. Written has corresponding meaning. We're going to pause it there. We're going to come back to 1-202. We don't went over the whole 100th area of the UCC code. We went over a bunch of definitions to digest. Yeah. Excuse me. To get myself together. Yeah. We went over the general provision. And we started the Article 2 with the sales, with the definitions. So we're going to continue with Article 2 tomorrow. And probably get into Article 2A tomorrow. So Article 2 tomorrow is sales and leases. So we'll get into that. That's tomorrow, Tuesday. No, tomorrow's Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Thursday we'll get into negotiable instruments. And Thursday's going to be a good day. So I highly suggest people pull up on that one because everybody wants to talk about negotiable instruments. Nobody wants to learn about the negotiable instruments. So the Uniform Law Commission website is very hard to navigate. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a little slow. Let's see. Let me see. If we're on Article 2, and I'm trying to be patient. You can't click on none of this. So the description is organized into 9 substantial articles, each article governing a separate area law. UCC Article 2 governs the sale of goods. For further information about the UCC, please contact the ULC. Yeah, it's not giving that it's even here. Documents on the plate. Is this the article? Let me see. Proposed. Oh, these are proposed amendments that they're trying to put up here. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. I see. Yeah, we ain't even there yet. We gotta learn what's going on first before we start looking at what y'all trying to change and shit. I'm not even there yet. I'm just seeing if it was gonna take me somewhere if I clicked on it again. I don't know. I'll be on that insanity shit. But no, it doesn't. The bill list. I'm not being impatient. It's because it's not there. This is interesting. Why is your website like this? Summary. They said that we're still on the 1951. So all of the newer versions and amendments and stuff they tried to come out with, they all got denied. So we're still in 1951 with the sale of goods and stuff. What are we looking at? Oh, we're looking at the UCC code. I was on the uniformlaws.org website, and their website, I'm not really feeling this website. But I was on the Cornell Law School website, and that's where we were reading Article 1, and we got started on Article 2 with the definition. So I'm going to stop sharing that here. And I also got a list of UCC definitions too, but this don't look too different from the article, John. And of course, we got Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition up. So I would rather go there than go anywhere else with that shit. So yeah. So we're gonna get started on day 20. We got 3 short videos today. I'm not gonna keep y'all too long. So this is day 20 with the semantic deceit. Yeah, so KKK is the Knowledge Keepers Club. Here in this realm of things, I'll go over law and order. Right now we're learning the commercial laws, which is the laws that we all get subjected to with the straw man fallacy and all that. And then I want to get into contract law and trust law with everybody. So, some people want to learn how to do all 3 at the same time. Some people want to choose one over the other. I want to touch all of them. And so we read for about an hour, and then we watch videos for about an hour, and that's the end of this. I also do a book club on Telegram. Right now we're reading The Art of Seduction. That is a little bit more lax and interactive. This one is more podcasty. So yeah, that's how it goes. So I'm about to remove myself and go ahead and play videos.
We're rolling along real nice now. Video number 20. We're rolling along real nice now. Let's just jump right into it. I'm probably gonna, unless I have a lot to say, I'm gonna try to shorten up these videos. We've gone through a lot. I mean, fuck, we're probably at like 13 or 14 hours deep already. Yeah. So point number 20. Semantic deceit is the number one weapon used against you at all times. Learning the definition of words and owning a Blacklaw's dictionary, usually the 4th or 5th editions, is how you learn to play the game. We've already gone over that. I've beaten that pretty heavily. Once you learn to play the game, it is literally impossible to lose. I'm not kidding. You become a king of the land. Now, there actually, not shockingly, there is something I want to say about this. The people behind the curtain and the people who are structuring all of law and using it and putting it all together, they want people to trust and believe in the law. The law is the structure behind everything. So they don't want people to stop trusting the law or trusting the statutes or all of this kind of thing. The law and the controlling of the law and the morphing of the law is the one thing that allows them to have control. So you think to yourself, oh, well, like, what's stopping any of these people from just doing whatever they want because they run the show and this and that? No, the people who run the show, they do not want the basic structure of law to be broken. They do not want people to lose their belief and trust and love and care for the law. Like, for example, a lot of people are get really emotional about the idea of no one's above the law. No one's above the law. You know, you say that to somebody and it's like, oh yeah, totally. Like where I'm from in Indiana, no one's above the law, right? Yes, that means common law. That means the 3 fucking rules of don't hurt nobody, don't steal their shit or damage their property, and be transparent in your contracts and don't fuck people over in your contracts. When you hear those terms, that phrase, no one is above the law, that's what that phrase actually is referring to, not statutes or Title 26, which doesn't even have an enactment clause. That's not what that's talking about. It's talking about common law, okay? So do keep in mind, semantic deceit, looking up every single little word, every single little phrase. What do they mean here? What do they mean there? They're very, very careful about the way that they define things. They're very, very careful about which definitions they use, which words they use, etc. So if you're careful about how you read and interpret them, and you put the brakes on constantly and say, whoa, wait a second, I'm not following this. You need to clear this up. What's happening is that you're never accidentally contracting with anybody. You're not saying, oh yeah, totally, or oh yeah, sure, or no problem, or any of those things. You are you are becoming defensive enough to be able to not get involved in contracts that you don't want to be involved in. And that is very, very much the key to your success and the people who are loved ones around you, right? So the definitions of words in the world of law should always be suspect. Really everywhere they should be suspect, but in the world of law, they should always be suspect. Simple everyday words should be checked, checked, checked. Every single comma, every single space, every single semicolon should be suspect and carefully inspected. If you assume there are traps everywhere, you will be successful in law and will become invincible. Like, for example, Bank of America papers to sign when opening an account. I don't know if you're going to be able to get this, but I'm sure if you try to open an account online, maybe they will. I don't know where the terms and conditions are. But anyways, if you look at the terms and conditions, it's going to say, I didn't have you share it. I wasn't doing anything important. I was just looking around for on the Bank of America site for a like terms and conditions kind of a thing. Terms and conditions to open a bank account. Like when I open my bank account, they say the word U.S. person. Are you a U.S. person? Blah, blah, blah. And then it gets complicated because if you say you're not a U.S. person, there is no like de jure state citizen choice. You have to choose a different country. So that's basically what I did, or what I'm going to do. At the time, I didn't do it, but I'm going to do it now. Interesting. I'm sure. What is this? Yeah, this is just some kind of like tiny bank. It seems to be a lot less deadly than a lot of the bigger ones that I've seen. Anyways, you'll see the term U.S. person, and you'll see all this, and you'll see all that, and it's just like you want to make sure that there's nothing that's really at least glaring. You want to at least look it over and make sure it's not like glaring in your face. And looking at terms and conditions and stuff like that on apps or like social media and stuff like that, that's not really going to be something that you're going to want to look at because it's like 9 trillion pages. But something like a bank account or a lease or these things, if it's like you're buying a house, it's like, okay, if it's 60 pages for your mortgage and for all these different things, you should look it over. I mean, it's not like you have to do it every year. You just have to do it once. That's the whole plan, right? So, like for example, the lease, when I got this place, I read the whole lease front to back. It was maybe 35 pages. It took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours. cleaned up every single little thing. There were some errors in it. I cleaned those up. I made some marks and notations on it. They had requested that I sign the lease online. By signing the lease online, it only let me type in my name. So I did request to sign the lease by hand. They did figure it out. They were like confused as to how to even do all that. They did print it off for me, and I did sign it without prejudice with the human signature, comma, beneficiary. She wasn't sure if they were going to accept it signed that way. They looked it over and decided to accept it the way that I had signed it. So I personally think that's the way you should do a lot of your large transactions. Social media and some of these apps, you download an app like the Etymology Explorer and it's got 450 terms and conditions pages. It's like, okay, like I get it, you know. Just keep in mind, you know, you don't really know what you're getting into really. So that's my tip on that. And assuming that strange definitions that you aren't aware of are being used will allow you to become one of the greatest lawyers on earth. So really, every single person every single man and woman, let's get real specific. Every single man and woman that is going through this course, by the end of this course, you're going to be substantially more powerful and substantially more trained than basically any accountant or lawyer that you're probably going to find anywhere. So I know that sounds kind of strange and fascinating, but you're becoming like pretty fucking powerful from this. And that's kind of like the whole point. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to go over on video number 20. I may start making some shorter videos after this because we still have quite a few to go. We'll see what happens, but let's just keep this one short. That's video number 20, and I'll see you guys on video number 21. Bye-bye.
I will always be ready
for every
heating up. Okay, video number 21. Heating up. This one's all about police. Now, my brother's a cop. I got no beef with the cops. When I see cops at the restaurants and stuff like that, when they're in line with me, I buy them lunch. They're trustees, especially after you change your status, because now they're really trustees because you're not a public servant and they're a public servant. They're the public servant and you're the beneficiary. So everything they do legally has to benefit you. And if they don't do something that benefits you specifically, it's trust fraud. It's a felony. And as per section, the ones that I told you before, those really specific ones that you need to know about to protect your rights and stuff like that. 18 USC section 241 and 18 USC section 242 involving your rights and people taking away your rights. So if a police officer decides they want to do something to you and it doesn't benefit you in some way, they're violating 18 USC section 242 and they can be imprisoned up to 1 year. Now that doesn't apply to people who are U.S. citizens. To some degree, they can kind of do whatever the fuck they want with you. This only applies to the beneficiaries if you're in the category of a beneficiary, right? 18 USC 241, let's say 2 or more police officers or something like that are involved in some kind of a situation where your rights are taken away or injured or whatever. Or let's say, for example, that's up to 10 years. And let's say if kidnapping or aggravated sexual assault or something like that, or an attempt to kill, that can be any term of years or for life or maybe sentenced to death, the police officers. Now, again, that only has to do with if you're the beneficiary. It does not have to do with if you're categorized as a U.S. citizen and you're a public servant. So keep that in mind. Police are simply unknowing foot soldiers of UCC statutes mostly. So they're running around. here's the derivation of the word police. Police comes from the regulation and control of a community, organized government, civil administration, policy, right? It comes from the word policy. And as we've talked about before, policy is basically statute. So the fact that they're called law enforcement, do they police laws? Yes, but they mostly police statutes. That's why you've probably seen these court cases where they come out the other end and they say, police don't actually have any real mandate or any real responsibility to actually serve and protect. That's because police, by definition, there are constitutional police, but your normal police, which we're going to get into, normal police are basically they're private for-profit corporation known as United States hires them as a private police security force for their policies and statutes. So they're not really, they actually don't have any real, they don't need to serve and protect you at all. There is nothing, especially if you're filed as a U.S. citizen or a public servant, there's nothing at all that makes them legally liable for anything. If you are filed as a beneficiary, it's a little better, but technically still they are a private police force. They are a security force for a private for-profit corporation known as United States. So if you want to know what the real de jure police is, which is something I go into in this, it's the sheriff's office, and the U.S. Marshals Service. So when you meet a U.S. Marshal, you're meeting a de jure, most likely, de jure, by law, actual, true, honest-to-God law enforcement agent. And the original term that was used for those kind of people that are de jure is peace officer. So if they're a peace officer, that's the real deal, right? Now, the real deal is they're still a trustee and you're still the beneficiary as a state national, in the de jure level. So they still have to only do things that benefit you. Now, when a police officer, like in the old movies and stuff like that, you see the police officer or the sheriff, and he comes up and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going on now?" And they're fighting and arguing. And he says, "Now let's just calm it down there, boys," like the old Wild West and stuff like that, or things are real hot and heavy and they have to go out back and shoot each other and do a draw. And the sheriff's like, rolling his eyes and lets it happen. Boys will be boys kind of thing. Now that's good sheriff. The sheriff he's essentially saying, I'm the trustee and you guys are the beneficiary. I'm going to try to do what I can to de-escalate whatever I can and help the people of the town as best as I can in any way that I can, but I'm not going to just grab people and just start throwing them in, jail or trying to create revenue for a private for-profit corporation and stuff like that. So, and then there's a real bad guy and the sheriff goes out and gets the bad guy and puts him in the little two jail cells that he has in his little office. That's back when common law was the real deal. If we had common law now, we would have these very small little prisons filled with people that are violating common law, and you wouldn't really have that many people in prison. Because if you violated, let's say, contracts and you fuck somebody over with your contracts, the way a common law court would operate is they would just have you repair the damage done above and beyond whatever. So if you shysted somebody for $20,000, the common law court would say, okay, 20,000, but we're going to double it just to really slap you around a bit and just to, pay for the person's emotional suffering or whatever. And then they would owe $40,000 and then they would have to pay that back and they wouldn't necessarily have to go to prison, something like that. That's what a common law court would really sort out. That's called an equity court, right? Like equity meaning you've created a situation where there's two different positions now and you've lowered someone else's position and tried to increase your own. Equity is to bring things back into balance. And that's the whole point of common law and a common law court. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. The de jure is coming, my friend. The de jure is coming, and the people who are at the forefront of it are going to be wealthy beyond your wildest dreams. So if this is something you want to help put together, no matter what profession you're doing right now, I'm sure there's some way that a lot of this information can plug into what you're doing, and you can make a whole lot more money than you're making now, my friend. The ushering of the du jour is coming very, very soon. So basically,
I made over 6 figures trading without even looking at the charts, without spending.
Fighting and arguing with anybody, it's stupid. Arguing actually gives them jurisdiction. It proves that there is something to argue about when there isn't. There isn't anything to argue. If there's no jurisdiction, there's nothing to argue about. And there isn't any jurisdiction, so there's nothing to argue about. To handle the police is very simple. You simply be genuinely kind, knowing they're stuck in the same trap you are. Let's say, for example, you're in a traffic stop. They offer for you to sign a ticket. The definition of a ticket is a contractual agreement to show up at court. That's all it is. It's got nothing to do with money. I mean, obviously they want revenue, so they're trying to make money for the private for-profit corporation that they work for. That's why it's called revenue. But still, regardless, that's not really what it is. It's a contractual agreement to show up at court. Very simple. You say, and what happens if I don't sign it? Say this with curiosity and kindness. They might tell you they'll arrest you if you don't. Then just sign the ticket like this: without prejudice, signed under threat and duress. Human name Brandon-Joe Williams, beneficiary. You have now reserved your rights, identified as a human, identified that you are the beneficiary and they are the trustee in a trust action, and also defined that you are under duress to sign. Handle them with kindness, make them do their job. The ticket is dead at that point. So the way in which you sign the ticket can automatically vitiate the contract since immediately. So the contract actually never even went into action. The contract was basically instantaneously nulled out. That's how you do that. Okay. Even if you do get forced into a court, who cares? Who cares if they suspend your license? Once you get your passport, you don't need one unless you're doing straight commerce, like driving a taxi or a big rig. So who cares? The secret is knowing that they are fucked. They have no power. So they don't. You could just simply tell police officers, if you want to, as per your Fifth Amendment rights, I don't answer questions. Well, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't answer questions. Or you can ask them the questions. That's also a good thing too. Am I under any legal obligation to answer any of your questions, or has my Fifth Amendment right to not answer questions been abrogated in any way that you know of? No. I mean, or they might lie to you. I don't know. They might say anything. But you can ask them these kinds of questions. It's a rhetorical question. You already know the answer to the question. So you're not asking them because you actually need an answer. You're just asking them out of being rhetorical and just for the sake of asking them a question. They say, you know how fast you were driving? I don't answer questions. So it's up to you. And like on the James C. Lovett website, you have the right to travel binder. You can print all that shit out, put it in a binder, put it in your car. I don't answer questions, and then if they have any questions, I have a right to travel binder. This is all the case law and all the laws involving everything that I'm doing and everything that I have, the right to do. Another thing you can ask the officer is say, do you have any evidence, or do you have any reason to believe that I am at this exact moment in time driving this vehicle for the purposes of commerce? That's the other thing too. That's another way of asking them, what makes you think you have jurisdiction? Because if you're traveling, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm traveling in my private automobile, and they get kind of argumentative. Not as effective. Because like I say in this thing, all they have to do is just turn their little camera off and beat the fuck out of you. Doesn't matter. But when you ask a question, it's quite a bit more interesting. Rather than saying, you don't have jurisdiction over me, you say something more like, what do you see, or what do you hear, or what idea do you have that gives you the the tip-off or the idea that I'm involved in commerce at this exact moment. And if they say, well, nothing, you can say, well, then if I'm not involved in commerce, are you abrogating my ability to travel, my right to travel in my private automobile as per, remember that one I told you, the first one, 18 USC 1545, right? Now you need to have a passport to pull that one off, though. You can't use a driver's license. Driver's license is for all. Basically, when you hand the cop a driver's license, you're saying in that moment when you hand him the driver's license, you're saying I'm involved in commerce, and here's my license to practice commerce on the road in my my motor vehicle, which is a different term than automobile. So once you get your passport, now you're handing him something that says I'm traveling in my private automobile for non-commercial purposes. If you hand him a driver's license, you're saying, here's my commercial permit for my current commercial activity. So you can't hand the cop a driver's license and then say what kind of do you have any reason to believe that I'm currently involved in commerce? Because if he knows anything about the law, he'll say, well, yeah, you dumb fuck, you just handed me a driver's license. So 18 USC 1545 applies for passports. Passports is what allows you to travel privately. You are no longer in the public arena. You are no longer in their jurisdiction. You're no longer having anything to do with them at all whatsoever. So that's why the passport's so important. And that's why you need to understand this. And when you hand them a driver's license, eesh, that's pretty bad. The only thing you can really do in that situation is just the way that I described signing the paper. You can ask them what makes you think that you have jurisdiction and blah, blah, blah. Out of curiosity, they might say you handed me a driver's license. So if they say that, I wouldn't say anything. You don't want to like incriminate yourself. I wouldn't say anything. Don't like react to it. Like, yeah, you got me or something like that. But if they do say you handed me a driver's license, you stupid fuck. Yeah, that's true. That is actually true. So police have a gold fringe Admiralty martial law flag on their uniform. We are going to be getting into flags soon on this course. They don't even know it's there. They don't know what it means. They are good people. They are lost in the same system you are. They know something is up with this country, and our police and our military will defend us if things get too bad. They are good people with good intentions, and you should actually offer books to the ones that confront you. You should go to their precinct and offer books for them and additional books for their friends that are there that want to learn. These people are some of the greatest allies you can have as a foreign ambassador, because you are a foreign ambassador to the private for-profit corporation known as the United States. You are a foreign ambassador to the foreign for-profit corporation known as State of California. You are a foreign ambassador to the foreign for-profit corporation known as City of Los Angeles. And your job is to represent the land of which you are a state citizen for. You are a foreign ambassador of California, of Nevada, of Utah, of Texas. When you come from Texas, you wear your big fucking, your big belt buckle, and you got your cowboy hat, and you represent old school values. You represent the state of Texas. You are a foreign ambassador of your state, of your area, right? If you come from Idaho, I think is the number one Mormon area. You represent, if you're Mormon and you're from Idaho, you represent Mormon values. You represent Idaho as a foreign ambassador from Idaho. If you're from California, chances are you're insane. So you represent California when you leave California. I'm just kidding. California has a lot of great people in it. I'm here, for fuck's sake. So, in Indiana's like farms, like old school values, like really, really pretty friendly. Family is a big thing in Indiana. Florida, especially now with all the political stuff, that they're big on freedoms, personal freedoms, stuff like that, even though none of that matters, but it's still cool. I'm not going to diss it. It's still cool. In New York, that symbolizes like productivity, enterprise, so wherever you're coming from, and you don't have to represent the state that you're coming from because out of an obligation, but you are becoming a foreign ambassador for the original de jure land that you live in as a sojourn temporarily, as a nomad, basically, right? True constitutional police is your county sheriff. So if you're ever in an altercation with a policy officer and you see that it's getting bad, simply say you're going to call the county sheriff and have him come to the scene to help. Sheriffs are awesome, and like U.S. Marshals are true American law enforcement. Your sheriff will protect you from bad policing. If you have a small town or something like that and you can access the sheriff is generally put in through voting. I would find out, because the thing is that, voting pulls you into the system, but it might not for the local sheriff. It depends if the sheriff is a sheriff for a for-profit corporation or an unincorporated sector. If it's an unincorporated sector, you can get involved in that voting process most likely without contracting yourself into the system. So, meet the sheriff, talk to the sheriff. You can talk to him about all this kind of stuff. The de jure versus the de facto. He might not understand those terms. So you can ask him where are you in relation to common law? And do we have a grand jury? And, what's the situation of, is the city incorporated? Is the county incorporated? If I have a problem with a police officer, can I call you on a common law level to assist me? How can I assist you? Do you need, food drives for the police, for the sheriff's office? Sheriffs are usually pretty fucking cool, man. I mean, even during COVID, the Los Angeles sheriff, he was saying I'm not going to be policing mask laws, and people have a right to do what they want. And he's under tremendous pressure. Oh my God, the political pressure. So sheriffs are generally speaking, they're from the ones that I've seen and stuff. They're usually really, really dope. They're usually kind of, they kind of know about some of this stuff a little bit. They don't really know exactly how to handle it. They would love some assistance. They would love some help. And they're great guys. There's really no reason to create enemies with the sheriff. The sheriff is probably, the sheriff has the highest jurisdiction on the planet. So every time you see like the FBI come in or the CIA come in or any of the organizations, they can only gain jurisdiction over the area by intimidating the sheriff. And then the sheriff has to willingly, it's not really willingly, but has to willingly give the jurisdiction over to these government organizations. Even the very, very tippy top of the entire federal government has to get willing jurisdiction from the sheriff. The sheriff is the god of his zone. So befriending the sheriff and helping the sheriff and assisting the sheriff in all of this is a really cool thing. Highly recommended, especially for small towns. I have reached out to the sheriff office a couple times. I haven't received a response. It was like these dumb emails that I had sent. So at some point in time, I would like to go and meet the Los Angeles sheriff and speak to him more about all this. So that's probably going to happen at some point in time as well. You need to always be creating friends and delivering value to others. Otherwise, you jeopardize the survival of your world. By reading this post and watching these videos, you are becoming the trustee, and you are now in a fiduciary trust with the people you encounter, and they are the beneficiaries. Again, it's your choice. You aren't forced to become a trustee. That is illegal. That is kidnapping. That is trust fraud. So you're not forced to become a fiduciary trust, but ideally you decide that you want to willingly step into the position of power, becoming a fiduciary trust with the people you encounter, and they now become the beneficiaries of your position of power. The police, when they pull you over, need to be benefited by you educating them and being kind and polite, by you benefiting them, but demanding they benefit you is to enter into the trust of God and is the proper and legal way God intended human interaction to be in his image. Okay? We've all been lied to. The police joined the force because they wanted to help. They have also been lied to. Educate and help them. The tickets they are giving you is nothing more than offered contracts to be in court. They don't give fines. They only offer contracts. Those contracts can be refused and destroyed with literally no effort. You defang them entirely when you know this, but nothing is stopping them from turning off their camera and beating the shit out of you for being terribly disrespectful. If I was a cop and I was being treated like utter garbage, I would probably turn off my camera and beat the shit out of you too. If police truly knew what was going on and how they are literally just generating corporate revenue, mostly they would quit. I know a bunch of cops that have learned about some of this stuff and they quit. And it's painful. They go through all this. They've got families and shit. And now they have to fucking walk away. That sucks, dude. You know? So it's like they didn't know. They thought they were getting involved in something good. And then they realized that the whole system's totally fucked. I mean, to wake up to that, it's pretty grim, man. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that you know, it's really, really tough for a police officer to swallow the truth of the situation, because to swallow the truth of the information makes their entire existence pointless and worthless. And that's not fun. That's not a fun pill to swallow. Okay. They do also apply and protect common law, and for that they are appreciated. If you remove statutory law and the private corporate aspect of their job, they would instantaneously be fantastically supported. Like the old school common law sheriff that you see in the old Western movies. I mean, he was dope. I mean, people didn't hate the sheriff. Hey, sheriff, how's it going? Hey, sheriff, good to see you. Even the criminals were cool with the sheriff because the sheriff respected even their rights. So, you know, that's the situation. Okay. If any cops are reading this, then if you divided all the revenue taken in from traffic citations nationally, you'd be, and divided it by each individual officer, it would be around $137,000 a year. You're getting shafted. If you're going to play this game, at least do it right. Make your superior's life a living hell until you get a decent cut. Ha 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 ha. You can even use this information in this write-up to leverage yourself some better pay. So, you know, if you were reading this and you were a police officer, you can, you're basically becoming a sheriff, because if you were to go somewhere, and I've seen this, there's a guy in, I think, New Mexico that had this whole campaign about how he was going to bring back common law and all this. And it's like the public love this shit because they want this. Your typical person loves this shit and they want it. So if you were to take all this information as a police officer and you were to say, you know what, I'm going to take all this and I'm going to run and I'm going to campaign for sheriff somewhere in some county. If you campaign for sheriff and you take all this information and you build a campaign out of it, I can pretty much guarantee you'll win. Guarantee. You could know nothing about politics. You could know nothing about anything. You could have a very small budget, almost nothing. You could do flyers practically. Put this information together, talk about bringing back common law. Boy, especially in a red state. I mean, you would win your county's election for sheriff like it was taking fucking candy from a fucking baby. It'd be so fucking easy. So fucking easy. So, you know, if I was in a county and I heard about a police officer talking about some of this stuff, and you can when you make a little flyer and just say, hey, you know, statute, what is law? What is statute? And then how can I create a better world with, you know, common law, right? And you'd have a lot less police. That's why you see in the old Westerns, you see very few officers because they're not out there writing tickets. You know what I mean? You have the, I mean, in a lot of the old movies and stuff like that, I'm assuming that's probably the way it was. You have the sheriff and you have the deputy, and that's it. Now, if it was just the sheriff and the deputy, and it was a de jure sheriff system, which, like I said, I can pretty much guarantee you'd win any county you attempted to go into as a sheriff for that. You don't need all these beat cops everywhere. I mean, you can just kind of support people to be, you know, legal firearm owners and support people to kind of do their own thing. And you can do some firearm training seminar for the local public so that they can learn how to use their own firearms. And you can kind of instill in the local public more of a self-sustaining policing type of activity, right? And you can do some cool things with the public and stuff like that. But you need a much smaller force. And then that justifies a very large paycheck for yourself and your deputies. So basically you're cutting out, maybe 50 or 60% of your police force, but you as the sheriff, I mean, I would personally consider it justifiable that someone who was doing something like that in my county, I would want them to make a absolutely asinine amount of money. I would approve $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 yearly salaries for someone like that. So you can even make it as part of your campaign. How all that would get funded and how all that would work, I don't really know exactly, but I'm just thinking in my head. When you get that kind of support from the public, they might be willing to fund you out of their own pocket, for Christ's sake. I don't know. So my point is, again, the du jour is coming. Do you want to be on the front end and make shitloads of money and make lots of friends and usher in the du jour glorious, beautiful fucking new American government? Or do you want to continue to be in the de facto? It's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. The bottom line is that, again, the people on the front end of this are going to be live lives of extreme, fun and enjoyment, and the people who don't are going to get left behind. So there you go. That's video number 21. I think that's all I have to say about that. And again, U.S. Marshals, sheriff's offices, de jure government, de jure peace officers, and true, honest to God law enforcement, common law enforcement, super dope, super supported. And then everything else is kind of like a bit of a shame. And if we could just move the system over again, it just all comes down to that trustee beneficiary relationship statute and revenue that violates the trustee beneficiary relationship. Whereas the old school common law sheriff's office and the U.S. Marshal's office and the original de jure, it keeps that trustee beneficiary relationship together, and it makes for a wonderful civil experience. So there you go. And I'll see you guys at video number 22. Now we're going to be getting
local business owners. If you need more leads, an entire online lead generation system into your business in the next.
Okay, video number 22. Now we're going to be getting into, you guessed it, the flag. So I've got my hat on. I have a pin too that I wear sometimes on my suits and stuff like that. I've got my hat on. I've got my desk flag right here. I've got my big bad boy flag right here. And we're going to be going over flags. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, flags, whatever. Now, flags are a symbol of communication, and the way in which that they are flown, the type of flag, the color of the flag. I mean, there's all sorts of different communications, right? And it goes back to old school maritime, with boats and ships and stuff like that. What kind of flag that they, if they took over a boat, they would literally fly a flag that says that it's been taken over. And it's like really, really, really interesting technology, right? So let's get into it. So we've got point number 22. The American flag that you see everywhere is actually owned by the International Monetary Fund and has been since 1944. Now this, I've actually learned some things recently that I'm not totally sure on this. It was owned by the International Monetary Fund up until maybe 1999, 1998. I haven't looked into all this stuff too much, and we're going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. So there's a guy here named Russell J. Gould. It's this guy right here. Let me see if I can get some more pictures of him. Russell J. Gould, right? This dude apparently is the flag, what do you call it? Postmaster General. So he actually filed some papers and stuff like that in the 90s, and he was actually able to gain control over the flag and thus gain control over a tremendous amount of political power. He does have a documentary called Last Flag Standing. It's really cool. It's interesting. Russell J. Gould and another guy named who was the partner with David Wynn Miller. David Wynn Miller. So you'll learn in the documentary Last Flag Standing about David Wynn Miller and Russell J. Gould. They worked together to get the flag back out of the bankruptcy sometime in the 90s, I believe. And Russell J. Gould is the new owner and controller of the flag, I believe, up until even present day. He's the Postmaster General, which means basically, as far as I can tell, he's basically the most powerful political person on the planet. And when it comes to American politics, no one knows this. But basically that means he is I'm not totally sure on this because it's just a lot. It's a bit above my pay grade. But as far as I can tell, he's basically the tippy top most powerful individual in the entire de jure government. So he basically runs the whole show on the de jure end. I don't know if he works with the UAS or whatever that we saw earlier. I don't know where exactly it all works. I just know that he's an extremely powerful person. He's on the de jure end of the spectrum. A really good guy. Super cool. You can check out his documentary. Now him, Russell J. Gould, and this other guy, David Wynn Miller. David Wynn Miller is deceased. He died in 2018, I think, something like that. David Wynn Miller, he says that he's a 92nd degree Freemason. I don't know. He says a lot of things. I don't know a super ton about him. I know that when I try to watch him on YouTube, it's a bit much for me. So I haven't really been able to consume a lot of his information. This is the main YouTube video that you can check him out. It's this one here when he's talking here. It's like a 6 or 7 or 9 hour YouTube presentation where he's just going hard as fuck for 9 hours or 6 hours. So it's a bit of a tangent, but I do want to explain a little something here that might be of interest to you. So what Russell J. Gould and David Wynn Miller have created together is something called parse syntax grammar. So basically, like as you're learning the terms and the grammar and the all the stuff in law is all like super complicated, and every single definition is the same as every other definition in terms of importance, and it's just kind of like this big giant clusterfuck, and it's super confusing, right? So what Russell J. Gould and David Wynn Miller did is they created an entirely new legal system and way in which to contract and communicate. It's called the Quantum Parse Syntax Grammar Solutions, right? Basically what it is, it's supposed to replace this entire fucked up system that we see now. And he's already contracted in with the UN, and he's already taken over control of the flag, and he's the Postmaster General, and he's already done a whole bunch of like court marshaling. And it's a really interesting, like total underground, like massive operation that's going down that I don't know a whole lot about. But basically parse syntax grammar, if you care to get yourself involved in this to a great degree, you can learn more about it. It's basically like the new way in which contracts and law will be written. And I believe it's already been like signed in and taken on, and I don't know all the details. I believe it's already like been fully taken on by a whole bunch of countries and a whole bunch of places, and it's going to completely handle and clarify the entire legal world. I find it to be over my head. I find it to be something that I'm not particularly interested in getting into too much at this exact moment, but I'm absolutely positive at some point in the future, I will be getting into this and studying it in great detail. But if you're interested in checking out these guys and learning more about him owning the flag and the rights to the flag and what that means legally, because the person who owns the rights to the flag, there's a lot of laws and things like that that only that person has. So it's a very interesting political position that he has. You can look up lastflagstanding.com. He has Watch Film. Here's the documentary. You can watch that. It's an hour and 34 minutes long about us. Disqualifications. Fictitious grammar. Outdated words. So he's talking about the new system that he's putting in. Arrest warrants that he's issued, I guess, involving being the Postmaster General. Evidence. Again, I haven't looked into all this too much. Blog videos. I don't know. I'm sure there's probably correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, performance. So he's basically created almost like a whole language, so to speak. It's not really a language. It's more a really ultra specific way. So here we have correct sentence structure, communication, parse, syntax, grammar, performance. So he's breaking down every single word and what it means. So the definitions of the word and the grammar of the words, it's basically a full breakdown where every single word has one specific definition, as far as I know, and you're basically using a contract system where there isn't this like super loose, vague system that anyone can easily corrupt. And it says here, contracts control the usuries of our daily life performances. Everything from how we operate at work, on an airplane, or social media, at the DMV, our doctors, all the way to the gym, school, and bank. Contracts written in quantum grammar allow us to control our world. Contracts using quantum grammar convey facts using correctness, sentences, structure, parse, syntax, grammar, and performances. Claimants with a claim of the life enjoy the benefits of using quantum grammar to control the contracts of their life. Claim of the life. Nativity claim on your birth. Purchasing claims life. You're getting claim of life contract, postmaster, startup technology. Claim of life. I don't know.
I'm going to show you how to buy a claim of the life and what knowledge, and knowledge is power, required to have, which is what we are using.
I don't know what this is. It looks like some sort of de jure birth contract, quantum grammar birth contract, children of the world, access pass, Australian flag templates, get a tutor, start of your postmaster journey. I don't know. That's why I haven't gotten into this too much. He, I hate the fact that he uses so many words that it's just so difficult to easily and rapidly understand almost anything he's saying. It's such a shame, because I know for a fact that there is a lot of freedom here. And I know for a fact this guy is really, really, really involved in some of the deepest, most intense shit to clean up everything and your rights. And what I'm talking about in this course, I know for a fact, like he's like the upper level of like regaining your life and regaining control of everything and being outside the system entirely. God, everything he writes is just something that I just cannot easily figure out what he's trying to say. And it's just, anyways, this is something that, you may want to check out more. Last Flag Standing documentary, partially syntax grammar, David Wynn Miller, Russell J. Gould. That's a side note. Okay. So the flag that you see, the typical American flag, that's actually a wartime flag. So American flag. This is actually a wartime flag. This means maritime war flag. Okay. So what that means is that, technically speaking, let's say, for example, if you fly this bad boy in front of your home, what you're saying in that communication is you're saying, this is a war zone, and if there's any soldiers in the area that need a place to garrison, they're welcome inside my home for garrison purposes. Now that's a little bit tricky, because when you fly this flag and you're communicating that could communicate in strange ways, meaning like that could communicate as tacit consent that police can go into your home or your property. That could be all sorts of different things. So what you actually want to fly and what you want to have is like what I fly. I have stickers on my door. I wear my hat often. There's pins. You want to wear what's called the civil peace flag. That's this one, obviously. That's the one that I have everywhere. This is basically a peacetime flag for people that are living in the land jurisdiction of the actual physical land. And it's not a maritime flag. It's a peacetime land jurisdiction flag, human flag. So, I don't know why he has this one. Oh, he's the one who regained control over the wartime flag. So, you can, let's see here.
Wait. You've been chosen for a higher purpose. To be a hero among...
That's the real on the land flag. It's often people often say it's a flag used by tax protesters. Okay, that's just a hit piece thing that they use. That's a true American flag used for the land for constitutional live human beings that should be identified as state national. So the state national would have a civil peacetime flag like the one here on my desk, like the one on my hat, like the one on my wall. Okay, the American flag that you normally see with a gold fringe, which is what you see on police officer uniforms and that kind of thing, that is a martial law wartime flag. So you see that in a lot of the courtrooms. You see that in police officer uniform. This is exactly why the country is constantly at war. It allows the president to rule the country by executive orders. They want to keep that going, which is why we get into so many wars, hence the gold fringe. We are technically under martial law and have been for a very long time. Okay. Now, there's actually a declassified Army regulation book called Flags, Guidance Streamers, Tabards, and Automobile and Aircraft Plates, right? Now, you can go into all sorts of definitions. So every single flag and every single placement of the flag has different definitions: care of flags, replacing the flags, disposition of the flags, the history of the flag, branch colors for flags, insignia for U.S. Army centers, flag carried with other flags, flag displayed in groups with staffs radiating, flags on the wall, flags at half staff, folding the U.S. flag, flag placed on an open casket, closed casket. You've got, let's see, all sorts of flag related information, right? And this is just for the Army. I'm assuming there is other ones for different military. I'm assuming there might be one for the Marines. There might be one for the Navy. There might be one for the Air Force. There might be one for other. This is just for the Army. I don't know if it's also for the other military forces. You have a vessel flag, signal, transportation, commanders. You have a airfield vehicle flag. You have a convoy flag. All sorts of shit. And in this, you can just type in, I think I typed in like Army flag book or Army flag manual. And you can go through and you can see U.S. flag carried with other flags. What does it mean? When the flag of the United States is displayed with foreign national flags, all flags will be comparable in size. The flag staffs or flag poles on which they are flown will be of equal height. The tops of all flags should be equal distance from the ground, right? You have U.S. flag displayed in groups with other staffs radiating. You have U.S. flag displayed in center of line. What does that mean? You have U.S. flag displayed crossed with another flag. What does that mean? When do you do that? Displayed against the wall. There's no fringe. I'm sure somewhere in here it explains the fringe and when the fringe is used and why. You have during speaking, half staff. It is first hoisted to the top for an instant and then lowered to the half staff position. There's a reason why they do that. Placed in mourning. I'm sure there's other sections where they have to U.S. flag with crepe streamer. Lowering and folding. The folding of the flag. Open casket, closed casket. Why? Prohibitions. Use and display by civilians. 4 USC 7. So if you went into 4 USC 7, position and manner of display. So there's an entire section of the U.S. code that goes into flags. So just realize that, and this is actually regarding civilians' display of flags, I believe. So, yeah. It's very, very, very specific. I mean, flags are practically a religion in government. So keep in mind, types of flags, the way in which they're, start looking at different types of flags, start looking at the colors, the fringes. You can look up what they mean. I haven't gone into all this stuff too terribly much. I don't really see how it really affects my life too dramatically at this particular moment in time. I just wanted to bring that to your attention that the flag is owned. It's an owned asset it was owned by the International Monetary Fund. And I believe in the 90s is when Russell J. Gould and David Wynn Miller got their hands on it. And then David Wynn Miller passed away. So Russell J. Gould is the owner and controller of the American flag. And, he's also the creator of the Parse syntax grammar system. So there you go. That I think that pretty much covers that. I'm not going to get into any of this stuff any more than this. I simply wanted to bring it to your attention. I hope that's been helpful. And if you want to look up more information about all of that, then you're more than welcome to. I've given you all the resources. So I will end this there because this does not necessarily pertain too much to the breaking of your contract. So that's why I'm not going to get into this much more than this. And I will see you at video number 23.
I want to get into this a little bit. I think at some point I am going to read this with y'all. But while he was talking, I had a question about U.S. citizens and if U.S. citizens are the same as a person. And we know the definition of person is an individual, corporation, whatever. So a citizen is a person. And we already know the definition of what a person is, which is not a human being. So a citizen is a person who, by place of birth, nationality of one or more parents, or naturalization, is granted full rights and responsibilities as a member of a nation or political community. All right. So a citizen is a person, basically. That's it.
They're still an entity.
That's a complete sentence. A citizen is a person. And that's what we see here. Then we can come to FinCEN, which is what is the new laws they came out with since everybody started getting them PUA, PPP loans, and LLCs and sole proprietorship. All the shit everybody was doing in COVID. FinCEN is a response to that, and they're trying to crack down, whatever. Anyway, United States person. United States person means United States citizen. So what's a United States citizen? It's a United States person, okay? This includes minor children, so it don't matter if it's your kids. United States residents, entities include but not limited corporations, partnerships. See, they even tell you down here what it is. Corporations, partnerships, LLCs, created or organized in the United States or under the laws of the United States, and trusts or estates formed under the laws of the United States. The federal tax treatment of an entity does not determine whether an entity has an FBAR filing requirement. I think that's just extra. But I just wanted to, like, clarify. A U.S. citizen is just a person, and we know a person is not a human being. This is for Amendment 14, Section 1, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution directs that all persons born in the United States are U.S. citizens. This is the case regardless of the tax, immigration status, or the person's parents. A person born outside the United States may also be a U.S. citizen at birth if at least one parent is a U.S. citizen and has lived in the United States for a specified period. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration UCIS website, blah, blah, blah. So, a citizen is a person. And I want to get into this too, because this gets more into like corporate personhood and the expansion of corporate law. Hola.